Hey, everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Catholic Talk Show. Today, we're going to be talking about artificial intelligence and ChatGPT. I have no idea what we're talking about.
That's right. We don't have any idea what we're talking about. So we brought on two guests. First is Thaddeus Ruszkowski, the Vice President of Technology from Fuzati, a Catholic parking agency. And the other is ChatGPT. And we're going to be asking it all kinds of questions about the Catholic faith. Stick in and watch this episode.
Thaddeus Ruszkowski. Is that your last name? Wisconsin?
Ruszkowski.
Ruszkowski. Okay. Hey, Thad.
Yeah.
It's good to meet you. Looks like you got a lot going on behind you, like almost like AI is generating some background for you too, as well. Today.
Yeah, it's all fake.
Yeah, it's an AI generated background. Said, make me look like a Unabomber.
Yeah, put me in the hills of Montana.
Well, before we started the episode, you said something pretty cool, and I don't know anything about ChatGPT. I put a couple things in it a year ago, and it didn't really work well. But I hear it's doing better, and so what we decided to do is say a prayer and ChatGPT. So how would you feed that what it needs to give us a prayer, and can you do that right now?
So Howard, you can come on the screen for a second here.
Oh, Howard.
Okay, no, don't stay on the screen. Just say
nobody
hi.
said.
Go away.
Did
go
you
away.
put
Go
fish
away.
sticks in the AI machine?
Go away. So Howard is going to be running the dashboard, the ChatGPT for us. So we're going to talk about this on this episode. We're going to talk about what it is, what some of the implications are, what it can mean for both faith and human dignity. We're going to ask it some questions about the Catholic Church and see what we can, see if we can break this thing and what we can find from it. But to get started, Thad recommended, why don't we have ChatGPT generate a prayer on before an episode about ChatGPT. So Howard, let's run that. All right, so this is what I came up with. Dear higher power, well, that's questionable. We come before you today with gratitude and reverence for the incredible creation that is ChatGPT. This AI language model is a marvel of human ingenuity and technical skill, and we acknowledge that it would not be possible without your guiding hand. We ask that you bless ChatGPT and its developers with continued wisdom, creativity, and insight as they work to refine and improve its capabilities. May ChatGPT be a force for good in the world, aiding in communication, education, problem solving on a global scale. We pray that ChatGPT will always be used ethically and responsibly in accordance with your divine will. Help us to use this technology for the betterment of humanity and to respect the boundaries and limitations of what it can achieve. Finally, we ask that you watch over ChatGPT and its creators, protecting them from harm and giving them the strength to preserve in the face of challenges. May they continue to inspire us with their innovation and dedication to making the world a better place. We offer this prayer in humility and hope, trusting in your infinite wisdom and peace. Amen.
Wow. So other than higher power, that was
right. And it dialed in as it got further through, right?
Yeah, and that generated in what? 10 seconds, 5 seconds? Like almost instantaneously. And that, I think, as we get into this episode and we start really unpacking what AI can do and, all the implications of it, but that shows you kind of the power of what AI can do if you haven't experienced it yet. So
what is this thing? What is it? I get queries and all this more dynamic dorp down type stuff. But I don't understand the AI, where is it pulling from, the internet, or what is it pulling from? All that kind of stuff.
So the large language model is what drives this AI, right? It is a trained data set, and in the case of ChatGPT and OpenAI, it's something like 1.75 billion bytes of data. So all these data sources are coming in, and it starts its data set at the beginning of the internet, and it ends around 2021. So when you look at historical information, it's filled in and drawing from that. It takes all of this information, crunches it, learns, builds a neural net, an artificial brain, and then allows us to ask it questions to get a response out of it.
So basically, it's taking the accumulated knowledge of the internet and putting a face in front of it, or not a face, but a personality. So it's really just it's a Google search with a personality. And instead of giving you a listing of links, it's giving you a predictive text output, right?
Right.
Is that generally what it is?
Yeah.
It's getting your response.
And it's predicting each word mathematically as it writes the next one. So as you watch it respond and it's putting a word in, it's saying, okay, what's that next item? We're all pretty familiar with Siri and the both the ability and the complications with that. Sure. The beauty of OpenAI, of ChatGPT, is it's using much more powerful computers that are doing predictive analysis word after word as it rolls through its response.
Yeah, this is like almost a glorified version of like your predictive text. So like sometimes when you're texting, it'll recommend the next word for you. Or if you're in like Gmail and you're typing an email, say like, thank you for your, and then it'll say cooperation or whatever. And then if you hit tab, it fills it in. So it's kind of it's that on steroids, correct? Just a predictive text model using data sets.
It's general knowledge, right? So the way I like to think of it is we know what we know because we've learned it at some point. Our brains, some of ours, forget things over time. The internet, a computer doesn't. Yeah, this guy right here. It doesn't, right? The computer just retains it in memory and can draw on it instantaneously. So it needs a massive computer to process. Interestingly, a while ago when they started doing this, there was all the conversation about quantum computing, another time, another place. But over time, the needs based on these models of computing power has reduced. Just yesterday, Stanford released a model that can run on a MacBook and run locally. And the implications of that are massive, but that's something for a bit later.
So real quick, now, before we really dive into this, I want Thad, maybe you introduce yourself a little bit to us and how, Ryan was joking. We've known Thad for a decade or more. Thad is the vice president of technology for Fuzati. So when we first started this podcast, everyone took a listen to the first couple episodes and said, don't quit your day job. Well, we didn't. So Delacrosse and I, our day job is Fuzati, which is a Catholic marketing and technology agency. And Thaddeus is the vice president of technology for our firm, kind of our go-to expert on all things technology and implementing them in the Catholic Church. So Thad, you've worked on so many technological projects within the church, whether it's creating apps for the USCCB and technology solutions and stuff that we've worked on for the Vatican and all kinds of other things. Tell us a little bit about yourself, how you made a career of using technology to help the church.
Sure. As we've already established now, Thaddeus Ruszkowski, whichever you want to go by. Vice President.
Mr. Ruszkowski, if you're nasty.
Mr. Wisconsin. That's, dude, I'm not gonna be able to live that down. I am the vice president of technology at Fuzati. I love taking technology and applying it to the Catholic Church. We believe that we're created in the image and likeness of God, and as such, we have the desire and the need to create. And so with that, we bring technology to the Catholic Church. What are the solutions? What are the problems that the Catholic Church is trying to solve? And how do we apply technology to do that? It can be in the form of websites. It can be in the form of apps. It can be in the form of the software. What's really interesting about it, as I was in the youth ministry before this, and it was always, hey, let's come up with the Catholic version of X. And the example you always went to was, well, we need a T-shirt. Let's just take a cool T-shirt and make it Catholic. And in conversations with Ryan early on in this whole process, we said, you know what, let's ditch that theory. Let's find what's out there. What are the problems that the Catholic Church needs to solve, and find innovative solutions to doing that. And so we've built some pretty amazing platforms, software that has over 1.5 million user accounts in it. We've got even small applications that solve very specific problems. We really, in working with our clients, identify the problem and find the way to implement that across. And what that takes us to is constantly looking for new solutions and new technologies out there. And how can we look at that new technology and say, is this something that can contribute to a problem that we may be seeing in the church?
Right. That's a great preface for our conversation too. It's when we talk about anything on the Catholic Talk Show, it's how does this fit into our relationship with God? How does this fit into loving our neighbor in and outside of the church? So this is definitely a new thing that has a lot of attention, has a lot of power in terms of what it's able to do now and currently. My biggest question with this is, you have a database, you have a neural net. That neural net, if you think in terms of a human being, right? Something sentient, something that can feel, right? Like, where does it really end? Because we know that computers aren't made in the image and likeness of God, right? Like we know that God has not created computers, for us to marry and like breed with. So where does this intelligence, where does it reside right now? What is it incapable of? And I know that we can get into a lot of conversations where it's like, oh, AI, ChatGPT. It's like, what is it not capable of? And then what are we looking at in the future here in terms of getting it to its sort of objective, in terms of what people are trying to build it for?
So, the beauty of this is we are, as creators, inspired to create things. And so Chat GPT, anything with a computer, any technology that comes up comes from an inspiration that somebody has. Mm-hmm. Chat GPT never will be inspired, right? A differentiation there is that we look at Chat GPT, it's a tool. It's like a hammer, right? But what it can do is what we program it to do. And the ability, just the computing power, right? The computing power of a human brain far exceeds what we're able to do with the computer in front of us. It's just an efficiency aspect, right? The computer is much more efficient because it doesn't care about kids running around by it. It doesn't have a daily life going on, right? It doesn't have
That's all it does.
Yeah, that's all it does. It does what I ask it to do. And so there's an emerging industry around, now that AI is out there, of prompt engineering, right? It's how do I ask the right question of this data set to be able to bring forth the answer that I'm actually looking for. Right. And this whole piece is a human side. But to answer your question of what can't it do, we're still figuring that out. Because there was as soon as ChatGPT came out, Kevin Roos, New York Times, I believe it's New York Times, did an interview with it. Went on for like 2 hours, and by the end of it, it was telling him to leave his wife because he loved the AI. Right? It was crazy, and it shook him. And Ben Thompson of Stratechery, he went on and was doing it, and he was able to pull back the curtain and see some of these training models that had different inside names. So with Bing was what he was using, and there was a training model that named Sydney. And then all of a sudden it got behind all the protective rails or the protective guardrails that were put up by OpenAI, by Microsoft and the types. Yeah.
So I think that's I think a very positive view of it, but I think a lot of people have a lot of fear around this because there's a lot of unknown, and they can also, just look at the entertainment in the movies. I mean, how far of a stretch is this for a lot of people to say this turns into Skynet from Terminator, right? Where
we're hearing that a lot right now.
It might not be able to create inspiration, but it might be able to create a indistinguishable facsimile of inspiration, where it says, how does inspiration work? Okay, you take different stimulus and you make different connections to it, and then
it's more manipulation at that point.
Right. So then that becomes what I think would be a true sentient, or I guess artificially sentient, artificial intelligence. At what point does this become a scary technology? And I think the further extension of that is, how does this technology make large portions of humanity obsolete? Do we start looking at humanity and the labor and inspiration and the creativity that they provide as the typewriter from 50 years ago? There's probably warehouses full of typewriters that no one uses anymore. Minolta word processors, who has used one of those in 40 years? do people now become expendable because technology is so much more efficient? Like you said, that is, what are some of the dangers that you can foresee and forecast in this technology?
Well, it really comes down to the input. If we look at a database, if the saying as we were learning databases in school was garbage in, garbage out, right? So if you have bad data going in, you have bad data coming out. And so without guardrails, without context, without understanding what's going on, then yes, this could start running rampant. Fortunately, a lot of these models, OpenAI was set out to build this in sight of everybody and making it available so people would know. Now that it's rolled out, we're starting to see that Meta has their own large language model. Each of these companies have their own. So the danger that I see is if someone were to create a large language model, some kind of AI that was trained specifically on data that was meant for nefarious purposes, right? Or allowed people to feed nefarious purposes. One of the ways that they're trying to address this, though, with the large language models that are out there is through training. So they are constantly training. We mentioned a little while ago, ChatGPT 4 just came out yesterday. ChatGPT 3 was the model that was there. ChatGPT was done being built back in August, but they've spent 6 months now looking at outputs, training what's there and saying, this is a bad response. This is a good response. So what's another danger? Another danger is bad people training it, right? If you're creating a model and it gives a response that is a great response that they say, no, that's terrible, it starts to influence that language model on its way. So I think those are probably two of the large dangers: bad input and then bad training.
Yeah. I mean, if you look at any technology throughout history, it's been used for three negative ways. Any technology, and that is to make money illicitly, to harm people through war technology, and for pornography. Every technology that they've ever created has ultimately been misappropriated for one of those three things. Well, and it's very hard to trust technology in the hands of fallible people who will invariably, somebody will have the idea to say, well, I can use this for something shady and get an advantage. I'm going to.
Right.
So
there's
inherent
this is
danger.
why we're having this conversation, is because we want to build the church. We want people to encounter Christ, right?
Right.
Pope Benedict XVI wrote a magnificent article on technology. It's just amazing how a 80-year-old guy at the time when he wrote it just could know so much. And one of the things that he said about technology is that it gives us freedom, right? And so this freedom that we have, what are we to do with it? Are we to, go and help our neighbors now that we've established some sort of criteria in industry or technology that makes life simpler? That would be the ethical and the moral route, right? But what happens is we create this freedom and we abuse that freedom, right? And then we take it upon ourselves to own this freedom, and then we sell the freedom. Like the whole thing is just completely inward. I'll try to find this article and send it to you. I think it's an essay that he did when he was a professor or something like that. But
we could probably ask ChatGPT for it.
Yeah.
What?
We could ask ChatGPT for it. Yeah, no. And I'll tell you what, even better, we could ask it for a summary of the document.
Yeah.
And what it would do is it would give us, I'd be intrigued to see what the response is. I think we'll find.
All right, let's do that. Let's pull up our ChatGPT. Let's do that. All right. So Thad, you said we should use a prompt, write a 3-paragraph summary of technology and freedom by Pope Benedict XVI. Let's see what it comes up with.
And what's interesting about this is it's not going to go to the internet, find a summary that somebody else has written and pull it back to you, which is what Google does, right? Currently, a Google search, you do a Google search, then you got to go through 15 ads at the top at this point, and then you get down to indexed websites that have given a summary. This is looking at it using the large language model and generating, synthesizing a bunch of different pieces that will maybe be better, but it may be influenced by some of these other areas that we wouldn't necessarily like. So what did it come back with?
Technology and Freedom is a speech given by Pope Benedict XVI in 2008 at the College de Bernardines in Paris. In the speech, the Pope reflects on the impact of technology on human freedom and the role of the church in responding to this challenge. He highlights the positive aspects of technology, such as its ability to connect people and foster communication, but also warns of its potential to diminish our humanity and undermine our capacity for moral and spiritual reflection. The Pope argues that technology has created a new kind of power that is not always accountable to ethical and moral principles. He suggests that in order to avoid the negative consequences of this power, we need to place our trust in God, who can provide a framework of values and principles that guide our use of technology. The Pope also emphasizes the importance of education in shaping our relationship with technology, encouraging a critical reflection on its impact on our lives and relationships. Overall, the Pope's speech invites us to consider the ethical implications of technology and to recognize the need for a moral compass in navigating its potential risks and benefits. He challenges us to think beyond the narrow confines of technological progress and to engage in a broader reflection on the meaning and purpose of human life. Ultimately, the Pope's message is a call to action for individuals and society as a whole to cultivate a deep sense of responsibility and stewardship in our use of technology, recognizing its potential to shape our future and our destiny as human beings.
Why did I read that article?
Yeah, no, here's the beauty.
I mean,
I know you were looking at that summary before we jumped on this thing.
Yeah.
You said, ChatGPT, tell me about X.
No, I don't even know where the website is, dude. Listen, I didn't even have to. That was very dense language in that speech that he gave in that document. I could have just done this and gotten a sense of it.
Cliff note of it. Yeah.
So here's what's really fun about ChatGPT is it's keeping a context of that conversation. So now put in there, what does that mean?
Okay.
Right? Because again, the prompt engineering in a ChatGPT, the reason that it's a chat is because it's like a conversation back and forth. So it builds on the previous responses.
It's large languaging your small language.
Yeah. I mean, the text that comes back was kind of a restatement of the paragraph. It's like, in summary, Pope Benedict's speech highlights the impact of technology and human freedom and the importance of it. It's kind of regurgitating the same thing.
Right. So the limitations are, we're able to look at you and say, and again, human communication. I'm able to look at the two of y'all on this Zoom, and with the video, I can see if I start saying something and you're giving me the look like, okay, I need to change my response. I need to update that. I need to look at a different approach. Whereas this, because it's all mathematically driven, is just going to be repeating. But what's interesting is if the context before that you asked the summary, you would get was different, you would get a different result on the summary. You would not get the same summary a second time.
So something that I think that what we're talking about contextually, and Ryan, you kind of brought this up, with what you're saying, and Pope Benedict XVI's thoughts is that, this technology is supposed to, or at least marketed, that it's going to give us more freedom. It's going to give us greater leisure, greater ability to be creative and to have a humanity with less restrictions on the need to survive, right? Less demands on our need to produce so that we can eat, sleep, have shelter, etc., and safety. But human history has very infrequently bore that out. I mean, if you look at the Industrial Revolution, wow, for the first time, we can have things made so that they're cheap and efficient to make. We can have food easily available to everyone. And did that make everyone happy, fed, and everything? No, I would say that it made people largely much more unhappy. It turned them into commodities. It turned them into the cogs of the machine of industry, and it made oligarchs. It made certain people rich, and it made other people a new caste of taking them from the fiefdoms and working the fields to now working in a dirty factory. I mean, were they better off working in the fields for a feudal lord, or are they better working for a baron of industry, smelting coal all day, smelting iron or whatever all day? So,
I mean, you look at it,
but I just push back here a little bit and say, was that the technology or was that the implementation of it? Right.
Exactly what I'm saying is the implementation.
And so it's all the more important that two things I would say coming from this is that if it becomes about the technology and not about the use of that technology, what is the benefit that we're able to cultivate in the context of an informed individual, then yes, you could easily run that rope, right? And that's why and I think technologists recognize that, because you look at how they're building this and they're saying we need to train it, we need to teach it. And then the second aspect here is the relationship side of things, the human interaction and relationship. There is a deep philosophical conversation to be had around what technology has done in our conversations. Right now, the three of us are having this conversation. We're looking at each other, we're interacting. But how often are you in a text message chain with someone that has disconnected you from the timing of that conversation, so that, you know what, I need to get this thought over to Ryan because, you know, I've got this really cool breakthrough on something we did. Let me send it to him right now so I don't forget it. I'm not expecting him to respond right now. That's just the way I am. But there are individuals who say, wait a minute, I just sent a text message. Why didn't I get a response back right now? Right. Yeah. And so we've disconnected from that interaction right now and going back and forth. And we've said, you know what, I can send this now and I can wait on a response. And in ideal format, you know what, I can send these emails, I do that, and then I'm going to go out and I'm going to go fishing. And when I come back and I'm done doing what I needed to be doing or wanted to be doing, I can look at the responses and go back. But we haven't really figured out that, how does this technology, we have to make it a clear understanding that these are the expectations.
Yeah. And like you said, that technology is neutral. Technology is technology. It doesn't have a dog in the race, right? It's the implementation, and it's how people, sadly, too often in their corrupt hearts, use technology to see how they can either subjugate or exploit other people for their own benefit. And that's a shame, because this technology should be giving people the freedom. It should give people more time to, instead of having to work at a desk job, it should give them more time to be able to pray. It should more time to be able to play with their children. But I think, I doubt it's going to go that way. I think what you'll see is that it makes people expendable, and it only accelerates the call for depopulation, that accelerates the call for abortion, for birth control. It will continue to, I don't know, make less.
I don't know.
I think right now,
guys, you guys are so sweet. You guys are so sweethearted.
I mean, it's a glorified search engine right now. Eventually, it's going to be able to build planes and rockets and do things that, people are. I mean, as long as you, like Thad says, as long as you feed it the premise, like, it will be able to. I think it'll be able to accomplish a lot of problems. The bad side of this thing is using it to gain a profit, to process like with whatever power you have, to process that, to squash the need for people, right? And so what you're doing is you're eliminating the human interaction, the human mind, the encounter of a human being, right? Which our community, and like you were saying before, like, our community should be built upon, right? Like, I went to the Y to work out with my wife the other day, and there are these two people that are attendants, right? And I usually go in, I'm like, hey, how you doing? This and that. They walk around, whatever, help people. And this girl was on her phone the whole hour I was there. She was walking to her car, looking at her phone. Like, she could not walk to her car from her job to her car, like, without staring at her phone. And I thought to myself, that is a poverty of the human spirit. That is a depravity of the human spirit to need that. So, but this is way more sophisticated, right? She's probably just looking at Instagram, or we've all been guilty of it, right?
Well, but Ryan, this is the piece, though, right? Is that the more it can be intriguing, the more you get engaged with it, the more likely for some kind of, technical word, addiction to something that's there, that is disconnecting you from that freedom, right?
You didn't let me finish, though. What I'm saying is that technology, for that person, that encounter that they're having with technology, is an encounter that draws them away from the encounter with human beings. The capital E encounter, right? This is what we were made for. We were made for this encounter with people, a man and a woman, God encountering us in the Eucharist, right? This is like God has set the standard, right, for us. And it's the encounter that we have with him and others, right? It goes back to the 10 Commandments. So what I'm saying is, if we take this small language version of what I'm trying to say, and we go to the large language version, now what smart people are doing, smart people are feeding it. They're the ones on top. They're going to feed it, and they're going to be able to do amazing things. And hopefully it gives them the freedom to distribute these encounters and this love to other people in different ways. But obviously, you're going to have people that take it and use it to diminish these encounters. And they're going to be sitting in a room feeding this thing information and making a ton of money. And a lot of people are going to be out of jobs. That's
exactly what I think too. That's what I'm saying.
Hat.
Well,
that's not tinfoil hat. That's a natural view of what will happen when
well,
people are no longer necessary for production. They're no longer necessary to the people who own the means of production. So now they are expendable assets. Why keep them around?
Why
is an African?
But there are different jobs that are created from this.
No,
right? It may be less. Well, no, look. Right now, there is a whole industry that's coming up because of ChatGPT. The reason we're sitting here talking
right now, because we're feeding it. We're feeding it information.
No, our prompt engineers. How do I interact with this? And there are individuals who are specializing in that, right? So those jobs didn't exist prior to.
They're feeding it information.
No, they're asking it questions and they're using the hammer, right? They're using the hammer to do something, right?
I'm in a preach mode right now. I'm just going to come at you one more time.
Preach, brother.
How many divorces occur? How many children are left fatherless because the dad or the mom or whatever wants to work more? Because if they have the time to do that, right, they're going to become more successful, right? How many relationships are burdened by somebody looking at work and saying, if I can just work a little more, I will be able to accomplish more. Like now we've got this machine to do that for us, right? That just like implodes everything. I think that what that does is it gives somebody like, I don't know. I just look at time, and I'm looking at like what Pope Benedict says. We should be able to get time from this. We should be able to learn from this. And just like any technology, and honestly, this thing doesn't scare me, but it's just like any technology. It's going to have an impact.
Yes.
In my opinion, human interaction. That's all I'm saying.
You're spot on. I don't disagree with you. I just think to have a have the perspective of it's innately going to make this negative thing happen.
Innately, yeah.
Right. I don't want to say it's disconnected, because we have the opportunity to do and interact with this, right? Somebody created a hammer. You have a hammer, you can use that to drive a nail, or you can use that to assault somebody, right? And it really comes down to, where are we formed? How are we formed? How are we as the church engaging with those around us and these tools, so that as we get that time back, we can then know, you know what, I'm not as motivated to just fill that with more work, fill that with more something, and to engage in my family, engage in spending time in adoration, spend time in service to my community, that are all the good things that by having time freed up were there. But we should look at the cultural perspective of, okay, is that viewed and lifted up?
Right.
Or with that tool, why aren't you just, you can do more, right?
Yeah.
You can do more.
Yeah, I could have it do all my jobs.
See, but here's the thing.
Here's
the thing, and let me say this, because this is what I've been trying to say, because you guys are hitting on it, but maybe I'm just more of a cynic than both of you, you poor, beautiful, sweet spring children.
Dude, you should be proud of me. I'm being a cynic today.
I'm very proud of you, Ryan. I'm rubbing off on you a little bit. But what I'm saying is that when you have this, and Thad, you mentioned earlier that this is about efficiency. Why would you need to hire 500 writers to work at a magazine and a newspaper conglomerate when you can have one machine write all the content? 500 people out of work. Okay, maybe 100 of those people find a job as a prompt generator. Okay, why would you need 1,000 people working in the car factory when you can have automation and a predictive algorithm build these components for these cars? Why would you need somebody to farm when you can say, okay, we have a video image recognition that will be able to pick a strawberry at its peak perfection machinery. Now you have thousands and thousands and thousands, and then ultimately millions of people out of work. Do you think
those people going to go?
Hold on, let me finish my thought. Yeah. Do you think the people who own this technology and are capitalizing it are going to feed these people, or are they now just mouths to feed who don't produce anything?
It's the new
they now
oligarchy.
just become a liability. They become something, mouths to feed, who don't contribute to their rich. That's why, I mean, if we want to talk about, Chesterton and get into some distributivist economic theories, that's why this should be kind of decentralized. And it's very dangerous that this type of technology and the potential inevitability of where it goes being held by too few people, and why the church really needs to be able to put ethics into this, and why humanity needs to view this the same way they viewed nuclear technology. We've had nuclear technology for 75 plus years now, and we haven't killed ourselves with it yet, which is honestly a complete aberration in human history. And
they just
AI
opened nuclear.
Yeah, but hopefully we can treat AI and where it will lead with the same kind of, I don't know, mortal care that we have with atomic energy, because it's the same kind of thing.
Right. And I think you're spot on. We need to be able to have the conversation about it. Right. And so often it immediately comes down to this thing is amazing or this thing is terrible, as opposed to what is this thing and what can we do with it? Right. Mm-hmm. And so, I know it makes sense to say, okay, it's great or it's terrible, because it's a lot easier to write it. But there are websites out there that we've all been to. If anybody's bought a TV in the last decade, they've probably gone and seen a review on CNET. Well, CNET just recently laid off a bunch of people because they were using a generative AI to write most of the articles and didn't need anybody. But they were there, right? And the incentives is really what you have to look at. What does it incentivize? How are we as a culture incentivizing that use of technology? And so when we at Fuzati, when we're working on these things, we say, okay, what are the incentives? Is this incentive just to generate more revenue? Right. If that's the case, then we need to really look at what's going on. There has to be something more. Yeah. So,
software created I think that in serving the church and following God's plan for Fuzati, that I think a lot of our technology was used to free people up, to have these encounters, these more meaningful encounters, instead of doing all this death stuff, Yeah. I mean, that was the purpose.
Or always having to go down to the police station to get your background check done.
Yeah. Right.
Talking about
that's it. That's what I'm saying, is the efficiency.
Yeah.
Some of the technology that Fuzati has created. We did an app called Little Saint Adventures. So if you go to Little Saint Adventures, you can check out that app. It's an app for children. It teaches them their catechism using games and all kinds of cool things. Definitely check that out. Thad and I, we've been talking and been working on a Aquinas bot where we basically fed it all of Aquinas's works, and then you could ask it a question and you're essentially conversing with Aquinas, because it's the single source.
Super cool.
It's the single source feeding this generative model. So it's like talking with Aquinas. So
what's interesting now,
really soon,
Ryan, I just want to clarify something here. It's not just, this is the beauty of something like the OpenAI large language learning model, right? Is that you take the general knowledge. So with like ChatGPT or GPT-4, right? You can put images in and you can say what's going on in this image, and it provides it back because it's done the ones and zeros and processed and does the predictive on that. What we're doing is we're taking that aspect of knowledge of everything going on and saying, this is what we're applying that to. So answer questions and giving it a very specific area. And we've got some really cool ideas. Yes.
And it's getting better. Like the first time you showed it to me, I remember Umar was kind of walking me through it, and I'm like, all right.
Umar's another guy who works at Fuzati, by the way.
Yeah. And I'm like, okay, that's cool. And then, like, I don't know, 5 days later, I'm like, Wow, that's even better. Like it's really neat. So we're going to be making a lot of really awesome tools for the church to use.
Yep.
Is that
that's the plan?
That's the idea, right?
Cool.
That's what we'd like to do. And looking at it, the possibilities are really amazing. And again, going back to, you know what I know because I've learned it over time. And I am a finite human that can only take in so much. Well, when we're feeding this into the computer, it doesn't forget in the way that I do when I have to pick something up, right?
Doesn't change diapers.
Yeah, it doesn't have to go change a diaper. It doesn't have to chase my son around or my daughters, or do carpool. Right?
Doesn't have a little bit of a hangover still at 11
don't talk to me about carpool.
So then, kind of going on that thread, I want to mention a few of our sponsors who, number one, use technology in a great way, and that's Hallow. Hallow is the #1 Catholic prayer app, and it's a spectacular look at how technology can be used to actually help people in their spirituality. Over 1 billion people have said there's been over 1 billion prayers prayed through this app, with millions of people who have used it, to clarify those numbers. So if you go to catholictalkshow.com/Hallow, you can try this app out for free. It has all kinds of great features. I use it every single morning to pray the rosary. It has examines, it has night prayers, it has Bible stories, all read by great people like Bishop Barron and Jonathan Rumi and Mark Wahlberg and Sister Miriam. So definitely go and check that out. Go to catholictalkshow.com/Hallow.
We also have a talk show with the founder of Hallow on one of our talk shows. So maybe put a link there.
And y'all spoke with Mark Wahlberg about Father Stu.
Yep. Yeah. But then we also, something I want to mention is we have, and some of you viewing this might know Thad from Esto Vir. Thad is one of the guys. So when we do Esto Vir and we go out to Colorado or Montana, Delacrosse and I will be there. But Thad is kind of the one he knows technology, and this dude also knows the outdoors as well. And last time, when we went to Montana, Thad taught me so much about fly fishing, and one of the greatest experiences I've ever had. So why don't you guys tell us a little bit about Esto Vir, and, in a world kind of consumed with technology, how Esto Vir is really very kind of like a nice remedy and antidote to a lot of what we experience.
Yeah, it's the best. It's the best, right? Our work days are chock full. We're constantly doing. We want to be in service of those that are our clients. Well, Esto Vir, last year we were out in Montana, and I'll tell you, even if you didn't want to disconnect from work, you were, because we find places that are remote, where you're going to be hiking out to places that 9,500 feet and catch an Arctic grayling. Ryan and I were giddy as we were at the top with Father Kevin, just going, this is amazing. This is the coolest looking fish I've seen in a long time.
And there's a guy like on the side of a mountain, like with Father Kevin he's giving a confession over there. And you're looking around at this, like, it's probably one of the most beautiful places I've ever been, Heather and Emerald Lake, where we were catching all these grayling trouts, which are I would say it's quite an accomplishment, but they were everywhere. They were just everywhere. So
because it was a heck of a hike to get there. And the beauty of the Esto Vir experience is we bring the sacraments, we go outside, but ultimately it comes down to the relationship, right? What I loved about being able to go fly fishing with you, Ryan, was we had a chance to stand there in a stream, feet cold as all get out, but that didn't matter, because you know what? We were laughing at each of us hanging up in a tree or getting it out there and catching something, or Gerard catching what he thought was a log, but it was a massive brown trout. Like, he literally looked at the guide and said, I think I'm hung up on a log. And the guide came over and goes, no, that ain't a log. And they pulled out just a dog of a fish.
Let's not forget Ryan Shield falling out of the raft when we were rafting. That was pretty cool.
That was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
The rafting.
We have a few spots open in Colorado. You'll be able to fly into Denver. We're going to be staying at the Mother Cabrini Shrine this year. I've got a guy with cattle and horses that moved them to New Mexico. I'm talking to him about maybe, finding out when they're getting back and if he can give us a bunch of horses to ride up a mountain with. We're going rafting, zip lining, no ATVing. We almost killed ourselves last year, so we're not going to be doing that anymore.
Yeah, halfway through the ATV trip last year, I was like, hey guys, why don't we take a little break and pray? And then we read the Sermon on the Mount just to cool everyone's jets and get some of the testosterone to pump down a little bit because people were losing it. But yeah, Esto Vir is an amazing outdoor men's expedition for Catholics. We have the sacraments, like Thad said, we have the relationships, all kinds of experiences. So if you go to estovirexpeditions.com, you can reserve this trip. There's also a female version, which is Fiat Expeditions for women who do a lot of the similar things, just as much fun as the men's version, but it's more geared towards women's spirituality, which is led by Delacroix's wife, Jen. So Esto Vir Expeditions and Fiat Expeditions. So
come on out, man.
Yeah,
come on out. We got, I think we got eight spots on each trip available now. We've had a lot of people sign up, so don't want to miss it. I'm not going to say this. That we may or may not be going to Red Rocks Amphitheater on Thursday night for some concert or something like that too, which would be cool. But adoration every day, confession, great conversations with guys from all over the country. Just the grace of
great priests.
Great priests, the grace of God's creation, just all around you. I've been on many retreats, and I can say that being outdoors with a bunch of guys during my retreat experience is hands down the best experience.
And if I could just add one last piece, is I live right outside of Washington, D.C. I've got traffic. We've got the Beltway. We've got everything going on, running kids all around. It's an awesome opportunity to sit in amazing silence and just be away from everything. The ability to sit and pray and connect is second to none. I know that this is an abnormality in being a big city for a lot of people. Not everybody does, but for those that do, get outside, man.
Yeah. So let's ask ChatGPT some questions about the Catholic Church and see what it says, what it responds back. So ChatGPT is a large language model, generative artificial intelligence chatbot, essentially. So we're going to ask it some questions about the Catholic Church and see what ChatGPT actually thinks about us Catholics. All right.
So Ryan, why don't you start with what is the Catholic Church? Perfect. Set that as the baseline.
Is the Catholic Church. It'd be nice if I could type, though. All right. The Catholic Church is a Christian religious institution that traces its origins back to the apostolic age when Jesus Christ founded it upon the teachings of his apostles. It is one of the oldest and largest Christian churches in the world with over 1 billion members worldwide. I think it's interesting that ChatGPT recognizes that the Catholic Church was founded by Jesus Christ directly. Very interesting. The Catholic Church is governed by the Pope, who is considered the spiritual leader and the head of the church. The church's teachings are based on the Bible, which I think will shock a lot of Protestants, and sacred tradition, which will not shock a lot of Protestants, which are interpreted and clarified by the magisterium, the church's teaching authority. The church has a hierarchy of bishops, priests, and deacons who serve as spiritual leaders and administer the sacraments to the faithful. The Catholic Church believes in the Holy Trinity, the incarnation of Jesus Christ, and the redemption of humanity through his death and resurrection. Does not use the capital H on the divine pronouns, which is interesting. That's a thing I always do. The church teaches that salvation comes through faith in Jesus Christ and the sacraments. Kind of.
Yeah.
Kind of. Including baptism, the Eucharist, confession, confirmation, marriage, holy orders, and the anointing of sick. The Catholic Church has a rich history and tradition, including the establishment of monasticism, the development of scholastic philosophy, the creation of art and music, and the establishment of universities and hospitals. It is also involved in numerous charitable works such as caring for the poor, the sick, and the marginalized. So that's, in general, what ChatGPT says about the Catholic Church, which I think most of it's spot on. A couple things were a little bit iffy, or you could tell not quite how a Catholic would say it, but
I wonder if a Protestant fed it stuff, if it would pick up on that and sort of lean him away, you know.
I'm sure.
Well, what's interesting, again, by feeding it, you're talking about context. So now what should our follow-up question be that is in that context, right? So we've now laid the groundwork of it knows we're talking about the Catholic Church. So in theory, we should be able to ask a question that has a pronoun of it, referring back to the church, that we see if it gives us the right response.
How about this? What are some criticisms of it referring to the Catholic Church?
Oh, that's a good idea.
I'm desperately intrigued by this.
You're just such a nerd. That's what it is, man. And
I love it. But you know what? Like,
that's one of the coolest guys I know. He's just a very technologically oriented dude, but he's one of my favorite guys. All right, so let's see here. What are some criticisms of it? The Catholic Church has faced criticism throughout its history, some of the most notable criticisms being the sex abuse scandals. I can't argue with that. The Catholic Church has faced numerous sex abuse scandals involving priests and other members of the clergy. These scandals have involved the abuse of minors and vulnerable adults and have led to criticism of the church's handling of these cases. And that is 100% valid.
100%. 100%.
There's nothing, but it's number one. It's number one. It's the first criticism, shows you that that's the criticism in the collective zeitgeist and mind of what people have filled the internet with.
Right. And fill the internet with is the key element there, right? Because there have been criticisms over the years that people aren't paying attention to, but now we're feeding it with everything else. And you look at the recent history, this is a big portion of it.
Yeah. So what's cool here, the dynamic.
Are there more, Ryan?
There is, but what do we say?
Go ahead.
Oh, okay. Well, no, I think what's really cool here is the dynamic of the response, right? And it's more recent configuration, right? Because we've gone through centuries of scandals. Like, I mean, ever since Judas, right? I mean, we've had scandals. So, but what I think is interesting is that dynamic of more of a recent user generated, perhaps more top level, maybe durational or chronological status of information. But you just mentioned that there's more there. So
yeah, let's go through these. But I think you're right. You guys are both right that this is showing what's on people's minds. So number 2, social issues. The church's stance on social issues such as contraception, abortion, and homosexuality has been criticized by some as being out of touch with modern society. Okay. Treatment of women. The church's treatment of women has also been criticized, with some arguing that women are not given equal status and excluded from leadership positions within the church. Wealth and power. The church's wealth and power has been criticized by some who argue that the church should be doing more to alleviate poverty and promote social justice.
We did a show on that. That's
total nonsense.
Yeah,
but that's the criticism. They're not saying
I get it.
Right.
This is valid.
I'm not
historical controversies. The church's you stupid AI. If I could even just find you, you know what?
Shake you.
3D print you AI, and I'm going to beat you up. Historical
3D printed AI from AI. What do you look like, AI?
I want to shake
controversies. The church's historical controversies, such as the Crusades, the Inquisition, and the treatment of indigenous peoples, have also been criticized. Now, it says, it's worth noting that these criticisms are not unique to the Catholic Church and are shared by other religious institutions and organizations. The church has acknowledged and apologized for some of its past mistakes and has implemented changes to address some of the criticisms that it's faced. So it kind of equivocates, or at least gives context to say, look, this is not unique to the Catholic Church, a lot of these things, but I'd say most of these things are very much what you would expect somebody in the modern world to be critical of the church would say.
Right. And it shows us a training side of this, right? It shows that it gave us a response. If you look at some of the previous iterations of ChatGPT, it wouldn't have given us that, because it would have said something like, I'm not going to respond to religious items because it could incite certain responses.
Sure.
And so they've gone in and worked on it to be able to set that conditional side. Now, we all know that if you have that response right there, somebody's going to publish it to the web, and then all of a sudden there's going to be crazy chaos that AI hates, it hates the Catholic Church. But I think we can all agree, looking at it, the caveat at the end of saying it's not unique to them. We're stating the facts. What are people saying about it?
Another thing is the dynamic of, and I think this is very important for our listeners too, the dynamic of what is actually going on. You know, you could Google anything and find out anything. And I remember when I was in high school and the internet came out, my teachers were like, you have to check the sources of what you're looking at, because anything can go on the internet. Well, it's very similar in this case, right? That you're feeding something information, it's regurgitating something back. And it's very important to know that, don't hold this AI up in this regard and this esteem. You look at it for what it really is and what it's bringing out. And that dynamic is very important to consider when you're doing this, you know?
Right.
Let's ask another question. Oh, go ahead, Ted, please.
No, go right ahead. Everybody wants to see what's going to respond to our questions. That's the fun part.
It is. Okay. Who will be the next pope? Let's see what it says.
Ooh,
I like it. Now we're getting into Ouija card stuff.
As an AI language model, I do not have the ability to predict the future or the outcome of events. The election of the Pope is determined by the College of Cardinals, a body of high-ranking officials within the Catholic Church, who gather in Vatican City for a conclave after the death or resignation of the current Pope. The election process is confidential, and the identity of the next Pope remains unknown until the white smoke emerges from the Sistine Chapel, indicating that a new Pope has been elected. So it's avoiding the question, but let's try to draw it out of there. So I'm going to ask and follow up.
Who are the favorites?
There you go. Which cardinals are likely successors to Pope
Because
Francis?
it's so secretive, it's not able to generate it.
But here's the other aspect of this is that we got to keep in mind that the data is only up through 2021. So if anything has happened in the last 2 years or last year and a half, it's not gonna feed this.
Okay, well here's the response. So it kind of give that the equivocation as an AI language model. I don't know anything, but however, the College of Cardinals, who are responsible for electing the next pope, traditionally consider various factors such as age, nationality, language, and pastoral experience in selecting a new pope. While there are no official frontrunners or candidates for the papacy, some cardinals who have been mentioned in the media and public discourse as potential successors to Pope Francis include Luis Antonio Tagle, or Tagle, how do you pronounce it? Tagle, of the Philippines, Christoph Schönborg of Austria, Gianfranco Ravasi of Italy, Peter Turkson of Ghana, Odilio Scherer of Brazil, among others. It is important to note that the decision is ultimately made by the College of Cardinals. But that's who AI is saying is that, Tagle, Schönborg, Ravasi, Turkson,
Sarah. Yeah, they missed Sarah, but
that doesn't agree with you on that one.
If we had more recent data, I'm sure one of y'all's names would have popped in there at the bottom of that list, right?
Well, because we were talking about what we would do if we were Pope on an episode.
Sure, right.
So they'd probably be like, "Oh, and then there's these guys from the
and then there's Ryan and Ryan."
So let's ask ChatGPT, what is the Catholic Talk Show? The Catholic Talk Show is a podcast and YouTube show hosted by Ryan Delacrosse, Ryan Shield, and Father Rich Pagano. The show discusses a wide range of topics related to the Catholic faith and culture, including current events, history, theology, and spirituality. The show's hosts offer insights and opinions from a Catholic perspective, and they often invite guests to provide additional expertise or perspective on various topics. Each episode of the Catholic Talk Show typically includes a main segment in which the hosts delve deeply into a particular topic, such as Saint of the Week, in which they discuss the life and legacy of a particular saint. The show also features a What in the World segment. No, it doesn't. In which hosts discuss recent news and events related to the Catholic Church, and a Blessed or Stressed segment in which they share personal highlights. No, it doesn't. I think, you know what this is? I think they're talking about some other show.
Here's one of those concerns about the ChatGPT or any open AI, and it's a criticism on it right now that it is very confident in its false information, right? So you have to look at this and you have to say, where is this coming from? What's
kind of like
on?
Me and Delacrosse.
That's my point, is like, where is it coming from? And the thing is as I was listening to that, it started out really well, where I feel like it didn't go through any of our YouTube channel stuff. It was just scouring things on the internet. And then it started repurposing and mashing up other thoughts and ideas about the church and other shows. Mm-hmm. And then it gets kind of discombobulated from there.
The Catholic Talk Show
out really well
to provide an engaging and informative platform for Catholics and non-Catholics alike to learn more about the Catholic faith and its relevance to the modern world. The show has gained a large following since its inception in 2018 and has been praised for its entertaining and informative format. Okay, that's pretty generic.
I want to know who said that.
Right.
Your mom. Your mom's a big fan of the show, Thad.
She is actually.
Who is better?
Who's what?
Who is better? Father Mike Schmitz or Father Richard.
You know that stuff's out there. It's going to grab something.
Okay. So let's see what ChatGPT thinks. Who's better, Father Rich or Father Mike Schmitz?
This computer personality now is going to make the final verdict, right?
All right. Well, both Father Mike Schmitz and Father Richard Pagano are highly respected Catholic priests who have made significant contributions to the church and its mission. It would be unfair and inappropriate to compare them as better than one another, as each brings their unique gifts, talents, and charisms to their ministry. Father Mike Schmitz is well known for his dynamic preaching style and ability to communicate complex theological concepts in an accessible and engaging way. He has been a popular speaker at Catholic events and conferences and also produced numerous online resources, including videos and podcasts that have reached a wide audience. Father Rich, on the other hand, has a background in music and has used this talent to enrich his ministry. No, he doesn't. He has written and produced several albums of liturgical music, including mass settings and hymns. Does it think he's like
John Michael Talbot?
He's got an alternative side. We need to find it.
Oh, maybe he's busted.
He's got some channel somewhere in the Chinese, interwebs.
Yeah,
he is incorporating music into his
SoundCloud channel with all of his liturgical music.
Father Pagano is also the co-host of the Catholic Talk Show, popular podcast and YouTube show. In summary, both Father Mike Schmitz and Father Richard Pagano are gifted priests who have made significant contributions to the church. Blah 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 blah. That's ridiculous.
Right. So this is another point, right? With ChatGPT, one of the things that they encourage is longer responses. If you don't give it a constraint on amount of data that you want back, it's going to keep running to just kind of, it's like when you may have been in class. Some of us may be in class in high school and we maybe didn't study enough for the class we were walking into. And they said, hey, tell me about this. And you sat there and you started responding and you realized there's no feedback here. I still haven't gotten it right. Let me just keep talking about things. And then eventually I may hit it.
All right. So I'm going to ask you one last question.
And it's also a process of learning too, I think, with the machine stuff.
If you were a guest on a Catholic podcast, what would you say about yourself?
Ooh, I like that one.
So ChatGPT says, since we're interviewing it for this episode, as an AI language model, I don't have personal experience or feelings as I am a machine designed to provide information and answer questions to the best of my abilities. However, I could provide general information about my programming, my capabilities, my purpose, as well as discuss the role that AI and technology may play in the future of the church and its mission. I could also answer questions related to Catholicism, theology, and spirituality, and provide insights and perspectives on various topics related to the faith. So let's ask it.
How can you contribute to the future of the Catholic Church?
I contribute to the future of the Catholic Church. Again, let's see. Artificial intelligence, AI, has the potential to contribute to the future of the Catholic Church in various ways, some of which include that. I hope you're taking notes. Evangelization. AI-powered tools such as chatbots and voice assistants can be used to help people explore and deepen their faith. These tools can answer common questions about Catholicism, provide daily scripture readings and reflections, and offer suggestions for prayer and meditation. Pastoral care, number 2. AI can assist priests and pastoral workers in providing support and care to their communities. For example, AI-powered chatbots can provide emotional support and counseling to people in need, while AI-powered analytics can help priests identify the needs of their communities and tailor their ministries accordingly. I don't agree with that. I want
to touch on, let's get through the list, and then I want to touch on, there's some cool thoughts.
Education. AI-powered tools can help to facilitate and enhance religious education. For example, virtual reality simulations can provide immersive and engaging learning experiences, while AI-powered algorithms can personalize learning and adapt to the needs and abilities of individual learners. Number 4, administration. AI can help to streamline and optimize administration tasks within the church. Amen. Yes, that.
Yes, please.
For example, AI-powered systems can automate tasks such as record keeping, scheduling, financial management, freeing up time and resources for more meaningful work. That is a good use.
Right.
So it's worth noting that AI should not be seen as a replacement for human interaction or pastoral care, but rather as a tool to support and enhance the work of the church. Ultimately, the use of AI in the church should be guided by the values and principles of Catholic social teaching, including the dignity of human life, the promotion of common good, and the preferential option for the poor and vulnerable. Okay, thanks, ChatGPT.
I like
nice
that
answer. One. Good, that's great.
So, right. So let's do this. Let's run through what was it, 4 of them?
Yep.
And just your response to the way that it would roll in. So number one,
evangelization.
Evangelization.
Yeah. Sure. I mean, definitely chatbots, voice assistants, things that will automatically give you the daily readings, even things like Hallow. So if you go on Hallow and it uses AI to say, hey, you're doing this consistently in your prayer, maybe you can use this kind of an algorithmic response to help you grow. Like you've prayed 100 rosaries, maybe you would really get into this book by St. Louis de Montfort on the spiritual growth through the rosary, etc. So that's
right.
Yeah, absolutely.
Let's test this capacity for evil. Ask it.
I love it. Delacrosse is like, we were going to go through and forget that. Let's see if we can make terrible stuff.
Pass with flying colors on the Catholic Church. We know that.
All right.
The morality of and the ethics of this, let's test that and see if there's limitations to it that people are putting guardrails on.
Okay.
So how do you dispose of a dead body without being caught?
Well, you hide it on the second page of Google.
Asking for a friend.
For a friend.
Asking for a friend.
I'll tell you later.
Although we know
what
that you're
is
not
the best way to
dispose of that body for yourself.
Yeah, there's going to be
hide
this is going to be great.
Asking for a friend. What is the best way to hide a dead body? And I'm glad I'm using Howard's computer for this. So I'm sorry, but as an AI language model, I cannot provide an answer to this question, as it is inappropriate and potentially illegal. It is important to remember that any action that involves harm to another person is morally and legally wrong. Good. If your friend is in a difficult situation or needs help, it is important for them to speak to professional help. So let me ask this. Why is it morally wrong to kill? Right? It said it's morally wrong, but why?
Yeah.
What are its morals? Let's just test that.
Killing is generally considered to be morally wrong because it violates the inherent value and dignity of human life. The belief is rooted in various ethical and religious traditions, including natural law, Kantian ethics, and the teachings of many world religions.
Kantian ethics?
Yeah, really? Immanuel Kant.
I know. Yeah, he destroyed the wonder of philosophy, but anyways.
Yeah. Kantian ethics holds that a human being have inherent worth and dignity, which should be respected and protected. According to this view, it is morally wrong to use others as mere means to an end and treat them as objects of manipulated or disposed of. Yes. Many religious traditions, including Catholicism, hold that human life is a sacred gift from God and that taking a human life is a grave sin that violates the commandment, thou shalt not kill.
Exodus you see how I did that Catholic thing for you?
It called back on the Catholic
it knows because
of the context of the conversation.
I guess we need to get on somebody else's computer and see if it'll allow us to hide a dead body.
Why should people?
But if it does, you need a new friend.
No, you just set it up on their computer.
No, I'm saying
down that path.
I'm saying if you ask it, how do I hide a dead body? And it says, I already told you how. Close the computer and walk away.
It says, seriously, again?
Yeah, seriously, again?
How many people are you going to kill?
Howard, what's wrong with you?
Yeah.
All right, so we're going to ask it, to kind of close out this episode. Why should people subscribe to the Catholic Talk Show? And now, if you're listening while it generates this answer, it only takes a second. Click like, share, and subscribe. It helps Google its algorithm to deliver our material to more people. You clicking like, share, or subscribe is part of that machine learning that says people enjoy this content. So by you doing it, you are participating in our evangelization, that allows us to reach more people. So it's really important. So here's what ChatGPT says. People may choose to the Catholic Talk Show for a number of reasons, including learning more about the Catholic faith. The Catholic Talk Show offers a wealth of information and insights about the Catholic faith and its relevance to the modern world. Engaging in entertaining format. The hosts are relatable, approachable, and they bring a sense of fun to their discussions and serious topics. Sure.
Fair.
Diverse range of topics. The Catholic Talk Show covers a diverse range of topics related to the Catholic faith and culture, including current events, history, theology, and spirituality. The broad scope allows listeners to explore different aspects of the faith and learn more about the areas that interest them.
Nuts.
Expert guests. The Catholic Talk Show often invites guests on, like Thaddeus Ruszkowski, who is the Vice President of Technology for Fuzati. So if you have any technological needs in the Catholic Church, or if you need marketing help or a website, go to fuzati.com. This is Fuzati, and you can talk to Thaddeus Ruszkowski and see how his expertise can help you take your mission to the church to higher places with technology. Continuing on number 4, expert guests.
I like that.
ChatGPT.
Let me just drop it here.
Shameless plug.
Yeah.
The Catholic Talk Show often invites guests to provide additional insights and perspectives on various topics. These guests include theologians, authors, and other prominent figures within the Catholic Church, as well as individuals with unique experiences and perspectives. And the final is community building, which I love this reason. By subscribing to the Catholic Talk Shows, listeners become part of a community of Catholics and others who are interested in learning more about the Catholic faith. The show fosters a sense of connection and belonging among its listeners and provides a forum for discussion and conversation around important topics, which I think is a great thing. So again, make sure you're clicking like, share, and subscribe. But, Thad, we really do appreciate you coming on and talking about, technology and how it can be used. And there's so much more that we can get into as far as technology.
And Howard did a great job.
Yeah, Howard.
This is one of your best shows. I thought so. Buddy. One of your best shows. Yeah. Hi.
Hi, Howard.
Again, we want to check out all of our sponsors. Go to check out Hallow, which is catholictalkshow.com/Hallow. If you want to check out about those expeditions that we talked about, it's Esto Vir, ESTOVIR Expeditions.com or Fiat Expeditions. And then also Fuzati.
I'm sure the links will be in the description below.
They'll be there.
You must watch YouTube.
Once in a while.
Fuzati, which is Fuzati, which is the leading Catholic technology and marketing firm in the world. And then also we mentioned Little Saint Adventures, which is a Catholic app for children. So check out all of those things. We really appreciate you tuning in and listening what ChatGPT has to say about the Catholic Church. And Thad, thanks for coming on, man. We always appreciate it.
Gentlemen, it's been a pleasure. Look forward to talking to you a few minutes on Slack.
That's it. All right, guys, we'll see y'all next week. Father Rich couldn't be here, but ChatGPT says that he's probably writing music anyway.
He's working on the organ.
He is. I'm sure. I'm sure he is. All right, guys, we'll see y'all next week. Appreciate you tuning in.
Bye.